Picture this, it's 2010. E3 was just last weekend. It is now Monday, and you're begging your parents to take you to GameStop to get your new pre-orders in for whatever they showed. Now, before you go, you check these news outlets on YouTube or their website to see what people were saying when they went hands-on with the game. But let's be honest, you don't really care because Skyward Sword looked cool as hell. I don't know about you guys, but for me, that was a reality. And sometimes I kind of sit here wondering, what the hell happened? In today's gaming culture, it could almost feel like the loudest voices have the most say. New releases are dissected even before they come out. And sometimes these releases don't even see the light of day. It often feels like controversies lead the headlines. And it's really hard to find joy in just sitting down and enjoying a game, whether it's laggy or performance issues or not. In today's day, the randomest people online just say something negative or outlandish just to get a hit tweet. And it kind of snowballs into this huge negative reaction towards something that honestly looks kind of cool. It sounds crazy to say in 2025, but it's hard to believe that at some point we had a world where these mouthpieces of negativity weren't the ones leading the charge. It also felt like back then there was a space where you could share your appreciation towards these games, and it almost felt like a culture or something to really engage with and sink your teeth into whatever they were showing. And I want to also add that you could do this without really getting harassed online or insulted for just having an opinion. Now, I know it isn't an issue in just the gaming industry, it's an issue in pretty much any social media space, but I feel like over the last few years, it's gotten pretty bad. And I want to preface by saying this video is not about negativity or anything. I kind of want to focus the topic on something. We'll get there. Now, what if I was to tell you there was a solution to this and it already exists? And to be honest, it's considered a profession. It's called journalism. Now look, don't get me wrong. That space in itself could be pretty toxic. For example, bias and subjectivity is kind of what pseudo killed the profession in the first place. At least I'm talking in the gaming space. However, I do think that still allowed us to think critically and really give our opinion whether we agreed or disagreed, and it was constructive. And I think that's what's missing nowadays. Now, back in those days, and I realize I'm speaking like it was a prehistoric time, but it really does feel like that. But back in those days, we did go to YouTube to see gameplay or reactions and stuff, but we really went to websites like Kotaku, Polygon, IGN to get our sources for games, whether it was an opinion or a review or hands-on gameplay or whatever it was. We would go to these sites. I would often check these sites for anything new, maybe something I missed or something cool. But at the end of it, it did feel like corporate jargon and a company just trying to sell you another company's product. However, there was one that kind of stuck out and was a lot more accessible than the others, and that's Game Informer. I remember when I was younger, much younger than 2010, I was a freshman in high school already, but when I was younger, this was even before I had any interest in reading articles about games or anything. I would go to my local GameStop and pick up a game and, often get the harassment for signing up for their membership. Sorry, GameStop employees, for you guys having to do that. But, it's the truth. With whatever money I had left over, I would often sign up for this membership because I liked the benefits and I also liked the Game Informer magazine. Just having it and seeing the art and stuff was always super cool, especially when the issues came with a poster. I have a vivid memory of the Batman issue 209 poster. It was the white Batman who had, it was an all-white poster with the blood. That is still one of my favorite posters to this day. I wish I had it, but it was amazing. I had it on my wall up until I moved back up here for school. Now, as time went on and the industry evolved, I really stopped getting these magazines only because GameStop would stop holding them, or when they did hold them, it was low quality, they would be ripped, and they would kind of just give you whatever. So I kind of just started reading it online. And then from online, it went to YouTube. And then from there, it diverted into what we have today, where it's just social media accounts posting. Though I never really stopped checking on Game Informer. I always had my subscription. At some point, I would just stop picking up the magazines and I would just read them online and look at the photos and see whatever opinions people had. That is until last year when GameStop decided to pull the rug under them and just close them unexpectedly. Now that's an entire video in itself, and I feel like I don't really have to get into that, but pretty much they sold them overnight and didn't really tell them anything and closed their offices down. And to be honest with you, I was quite sad. It almost felt like a piece of gaming culture or gaming history kind of just died in the snap of a finger. An archive of old issues and pieces just gone because a company just didn't want to have it. That is until they made a comeback. In March of 2025, just a few months after they closed, Game Informer came back and announced that they're opening back up independently. It was a huge turning point for the publication. With the small amount of journalism knowledge that I do have, being independent is pretty big deal. This meant that they weren't tied to GameStop or any other parent company controlling what they post about. Now, when they opened back up, it was a social media account saying, hey, we're back. And I know I'm talking about how social media kind of sucks, but they had to start somewhere. But they announced that they were back and they spoke about how they're making changes to the editing process and how they were going to go about writing things. They emphasized on their freedom and how they want to really write to serve the readers and gamers. They were somehow able to keep their original staff and get the complete archives of the magazine before they closed. They launched their website and immediately started posting content, from podcasts to videos to article reviews. And then the big news, they were bringing back the print magazine. Now, with the promise of a print magazine and the backlog of issues, I was immediately sold. I didn't even hesitate to start my subscription. I did it the minute they opened them up. Now, I could have simply just not done that and waited until they started releasing stuff to really see the quality, but part of me just really missed it. Again, the negativity online sometimes gets to me and it loses focus. I like magazines and physical stuff because it's a product that you have in your hand and you kind of can get lost in it. And I don't agree with all their takes or some of the stuff they say, but most of the content is great and it's always been great. So that's why I subbed. I have been subbed for them and I could say that the product is nice, but I'm going to get into that.
Okay, so in front of me, I have the first three issues of the new Game Informer, the Borderlands cover, the Vampire cover, and the Ninja Gaiden cover. I'm displaying the Borderland cover, and you could see that the covers are glossy now. You could also see more color on the pages, and the pages feel much heavier. Yeah, you could see the reds pop out a little more. It is on camera, so you could barely tell, but overall, just the quality of them are much better. It feels more magazine-like and not paper glued together, praying that it gets to you in one piece. One of my favorite things about the new magazine, while I display the second one, is like the review and the preview segments. It's like a little section in the magazine that talks about like game previews and reviews and stuff, and it's pretty cool. Here's the Ninja Gaiden 4 cover with Ryu in the back. I think it's pretty sick. You could see there the previews and the reviews of the games. That orange looks really nice. Mina, can't wait for that game. And last thing I wanted to show was the poster. This is the Phantom Blade Zero poster. Um, Again, really cool. I'm very limited in space, but yeah, I'm showing it. Looks very Bloodborne like on both sides with the crows and stuff. Pretty cool. Really hyped for this game. And yeah, that is like a physical preview of the Game Informers.
I know I just spoke about the quality of the magazine itself, but I wanted to focus on the quality of the writing. There's one article in the second issue of the new print that I wanted to highlight. It's titled "Joy is Reason Enough" by Brian Shea. It's an opinion piece, but it perfectly encapsulates how I feel about games right now in current time. In a few words, it kind of explains how gaming is overwhelming and ever moving. He highlights of how many new games are coming out, yet we always go back to the ones that we love the most and how sometimes we feel guilty about it. But in reality, should we? Now I'm gonna read a piece from the article. So if you see me on my phone, I'm sorry, I'm just reading and I don't wanna get it messed up. In the article, he writes, comfort food gaming has been a staple of my entire life. I've replayed Super Mario World, Final Fantasy X, and Pokemon Blue more times than I can count. And I would argue that with the tumult and uncertainty of the 2025 news cycle, we need it now more than ever. If gaming is your most prominent hobby, as it is mine, don't deny yourself the joy and escapism of re-embarking on your favorite adventure. And yeah, it couldn't be any better said. In reality, we love gaming for what it is. It brings joy to our life. So when I see negativity online, it really takes me away from that. I like Game Informer and places like this because I could really share this appreciation for the art with other people. I know that sounds kind of pretentious, but at the end of the day, I am a writer and I do enjoy journalism, so I do have a bias, but hear me out. When you have people that dedicate their professional life to giving you this content, they have often more access than we do to stuff. Now, they can't always be right, but oftentimes they're not wrong. Recently, in the newest issue, we got a look at Phantom Blade Zero, which is one of my most hyped games now coming into 2026. At first, I didn't really care for it, but they had this huge promotion for it on Game Informer that really shows the game. They went to China. One of the people even got in a mocap suit to see how they made the game. And to me, a random YouTuber doesn't have that access. Now, should they? That's up for debate. But publication is important, and especially when it's dedicated to the arts. Now, I've got to be honest, it's not all good. They've had a rocky start starting the issues back up. There was a lot of delays with the first print and quality issues, but I'm going to get to that. I do want to give constructive criticism because I want to see them succeed. It's something I enjoy and it's something I like, and it looks like it's something they like doing. So if I had to choose 3 things I would criticize, they're kind of simple. First one would be shipping. They do provide us the magazine in like a plastic now, which I enjoy, but I think they could take it a step further. Now, I'm a physical collector, as you could see, and I like to keep my stuff as pristine as possible, as nerdy as that sounds. If they gave us the option to ship the magazine in like a small box or something, I would take it to make sure it's in good condition. My second issue came with a rip in the front and I was sad. I kind of picked it up and looked at it and was like, oh man. And that sucks because I would have liked to keep it in good condition. Another piece of feedback would not be about the magazine, but more so about their content. I love the podcast that they host. We get an insight on the games coming out and, to be honest, a personal take on the journalism regarding those announcements. I mentioned earlier that they had someone go to China and test out Phantom Blade Zero, but we got a good insight on them going to China and testing the game out. Somebody also went to Japan to play Silent Hill, and I believe someone went to play Death Stranding. I can't remember, but yeah, I like the podcast is the point I'm trying to make. But I think there could be more. I would like to see a podcast where maybe they go into the history of games, maybe pick a game and really dive into like the history of it and stuff, and maybe get interviews from people that were in those. I think that'd be pretty cool. I don't know if it's a huge ask or not, but yeah, it's always something they could do. And lastly, I kept this last because I see it all the time on Reddit and I kind of feel bad bringing it up, but for the sake of it being probably the coolest thing they could do, I'm gonna mention it. And if anyone from Game Informer is watching this, I'm sorry for bringing it up again, but it's the app. I think an app in 2025 is extremely important. Being able to read the magazine on the go in a more seamless system rather than the website is honestly the best thing to do. It could have its own issues and stuff, but I think in the long run, it might benefit them more than it hurts them. So yeah, give me those 3 things and I'll be a satisfied customer for the next year. And yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I know this was kind of like a ranty, yapping video, but I really do miss the gaming culture of back then. And I know it could be nostalgia and my age and stuff, and I'm getting older, but part of me does feel like the culture is being lost and I would like to see it come back. And I think the start of that is companies like Game Informer really showcasing the talents of the people that work there and what they could do. And that's all I have for today. So yeah, if you miss traditional games media like I do, give this video a like. And if you do like the video, please leave me a sub. I'm trying to hit 500 before the end of the year. So if I could do that with your guys' help, that'd be awesome. And with one final goodbye, stay gaming and stay happy. Have a good one, everyone.